John, how you doing, bud?
That explains it.
What? All right.
Right. Yeah.
Somebody mentioned you to me the other day.
But eventually I'd be here today?
No.
What'd you say?
Somebody mentioned.
Well, I thought he was.
Oh, yeah. John, yeah. And his man.
We got four.
Hello. Test. 1, 2.
Guy.
You should have
Yeah.
never told me that.
It's okay though. I mean,
Testing. 1, 2.
Should
Hello.
have never told me it was on.
he's just asking for things that he's asked for. The same stuff. Yeah, they're all, well, now with patio, which is restricted because of PCDA for use for minute space. It was restricted.
Not now, I'm over going.
That's right. That's okay.
Yeah, it's the original approval for him to be in that space stated that the outdoor seating is prohibited. As a part of his approval to be out there to be in that space. If he, we talked about if he wants to move to someplace that's not that's what caused the problem. And then he wanted to extend hours, which he's asking for, and not much longer, but we've
feel
gone
naked
down
over
this
here.
road before. And
I feel naked. There's nobody there I can talk to.
You might have to
there
talk to me.
was, but I
That's
think
all right.
they
That's
tried-
all
I
right.
think they yeah,
Too
they
close
wanted
to a date, like
they
a
were
facility that teaches kids.
They were too close.
No. 58 degrees just turned into 33. No refund ticket yet. No refund ticket. It's going to be 33.
You already bought the ticket?
We bought the tickets when it was said it was going to be 58.
Of course.
Jeez. I'm sure the whole audience. We have to do it 100 times.
Well, maybe we could.
You can make the speech. Hey, one speech for everybody.
Maybe we could minimize this.
That's the weirdest snowstorm I've ever seen, Lou.
Did you see the whiteout? Unbelievable.
It's a good one. Who's to say what the future holds? We're just preparing.
First, yes. Board meeting. I referred to the Wednesday. Not funny. Well, yeah.
We're going to call.
We're calling the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first agenda item this evening is the approval of the minutes of the February 13th Plan Commission meeting.
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I abstain. We move into public hearings. Petition number 2018-0163, Certified Local Government Annual Report for the year 2017.
Thank you. This is just an informational item with an annual report that we submit every year to the state to maintain our certified local government status for our historic district. And as you are the governing body that overviews our historic preservation program, we are bringing it to you guys just as an informational item. We've already had a review session through this, and so it's mostly just for documentation purposes. Just to highlight a few things in the report very quickly, just from last year's items that we've completed. If you go to page 6 of the report, it talks about the Stellwagen property. And a few of the highlights from this year were that we approved the master plan for that. We also completed the perimeter path and approved funding to design the parking facilities that will be coming in this next fiscal year. On page 7, you'll see that we've increased our COA reviews this year from last year, which is exciting. And then on page 13, we also highlighted that we provided AIG funding to replace the roof on the Twin Towers property, which is a landmark facility in the village. And then the end of the report just discusses, kind of has a laundry list on page 16 that goes over the things that we're expecting to do in 2018. And then also that kind of some items on 2018 that we will be continuing to do, which is helping to train you guys on preservation, as well as continuing to update our codes and do reviews, and also finishing a landmark designation packet for the residents in order to proceed with allowing them to do landmarking on buildings that are not currently landmarked in the village. If you guys have any questions or comments.
It's a public hearing, so if anybody in the audience would like to respond to it, please step forward. If not, we'll continue. Seeing no one wishing to step forward, I've read this review. I think our commissioners had this review and read this thing about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think it was. I see no problem with it. Commissioner Aubin?
No problem.
Commissioner Falk? Commissioner Sheldon?
Everything's fine, thank you.
Commissioner Schuessler? No problem.
No problems.
All right. This doesn't require any motion, so we'll move on. Thank you. All right, we move to petition number 2017-0914, Andy's Frozen Custard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The case before you tonight, the petitioner is requesting a special use permit for a restaurant with a drive-through with 2 modifications. The address of the property is at 14555 LaGrange Road. The size of the site is approximately 1.2 acres. The site is located in our downtown planning district, and the land use category as described in the comprehensive plan is downtown mixed use. It is currently zoned Village Center District in our VCD zone, and there is no rezoning requested as a part of this petition. Again, land use will be a restaurant that also has a drive-through service lane, and the mobility or the primary access to the site is through LaGrange Road, which is an IDOT right-of-way. And the listing again, just for clarification, the modifications that are being requested is there's a drive aisle in between the building and the street, as well as they are requesting a modification to increase parking from 21 spaces, which is required, to 49 parking spaces, which is proposed. This is an overview slide of where they currently are in the development process. As of now, they've completed their petition, the planning review, and they're in the first step of their due process, the public hearing at the Plan Commission, and looking for a recommendation of approval to move forward. This slide is an overview of our downtown planning district from the Village of Orland Park Comprehensive Plan. The site itself is highlighted in the red box, and the purple color indicated on the map shows the downtown mixed-use land use category. To give you a little context about the site and its surroundings, it is surrounded entirely on all sides by VCD zoning or Village Center District zoning. And the surrounding land uses to the north and the south are both restaurants with drive-through service lanes, as well as on the east, there is an office complex, and on the west, there is a banquet hall. The next slide shows the proposed site plan. If you recall, this was the site of a former Wendy's. They are generally designing the site with what was previously there. The reason for them changing it is because of the way that Andy's Frozen Custard operates is slightly different than the previous restaurant. It's a much smaller building footprint because they don't provide for internal seating. It's either walk-up service or through the drive-through itself. I highlighted the area in red box there at the front of the site, which shows the drive aisle that they're triggering the modification to the special use permit. It's important to note that this was also a condition that was granted approval when the previous Wendy's was there before. Another thing to note, in order to allow for a drive-through service window in the Village Center zoning district, they have to provide decorative pavement that is shown with the red arrow that goes to the, I guess, shaded area in the drive-through lane. That indicates the decorative form of pavement to distinguish between the drive-through lane and the rest of the parking areas. The petitioner is providing for a pedestrian connection to LaGrange Road, and they are also providing for a cross-access connection to the property to the south. The cross-access is very important given the barrier median that's in LaGrange Road now. We want to make it more accessible to different properties without having to get back onto LaGrange. For those reasons, we are supporting the modifications, and it is also important to note that although they are requesting a modification to increase their parking, they are proposing less parking than was there previously. And the last item, they are compliant with the setbacks, lot coverage, and the drive aisle widths for the land that are described in the Land Development Code. This next slide depicts the elevations of the proposed restaurant. The primary building materials are, if you look at the north elevation on the left-hand side, the areas shown in black are actually going to be brick. That's not a painted brick, that would just be a black-colored brick. They are, the fiber cement board is shown on the tower feature. That's the red, shown in red. That would be the fiber cement board. And the storefront glazing. They have worked with our building division to ensure that they meet the building code and our masonry requirements, so they are compliant in that form. Some other things to point out on the elevations is they are proposing this 24-foot tall tower that will display the Andy's branding. And one clarification item that I wanted to make, along the east elevation, they're proposing a composite wood panel, a Trex product. And although it may appear that that's actually the exterior wall ends before that area, and they are extending this, they're providing for an equipment area, and that Trex paneling will be used as an equipment screen. This shows the landscape plan, the preliminary landscape plan that was accepted by the village. As you can see, there's a significant amount of landscaping that's being provided on site. The areas that are highlighted specifically in the blue, the Land Development Code requires that they provide an enhanced buffer adjacent to any drive-through service lane. And in order to meet that requirement, they have upsized the plant materials on the north buffer yard to better screen the drive-through area. In addition, because they're triggering a modification for the drive aisle in between the building and the street, they have provided for a 3-foot landscaping screen, and that area where that 3-foot screen will be provided in the combination of shrubs and trees is highlighted in the green box. So to summarize the presentation, staff is recommending approval of a special use permit for a restaurant with a drive-through with modifications for 1, a drive aisle in between the building and the street, and 2, an increase in parking from 21 spaces to 49 spaces. They're also requesting approval of their site plan, their elevations, and the preliminary landscape plan. That concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Lello. Lilo.
Thank you.
He's gone over the subject this evening on this particular thing. If there's anybody out there who wishes to comment, please come forward.
Petitioner? Petitioner?
Oh, the petitioner. Is the petitioner out here?
I'm going to have to swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth and matters before the commission this evening?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Your name and address for the record.
My name is Aaron King. I'm with Andy's Frozen Custard. We're located at 211 East Water Street in Springfield, Missouri. It's a job presenting our project to you. I don't have anything necessarily to add to that other than answer any questions you guys might have.
Okay, thank you very
Thank you,
much.
sir.
Now, is there anybody out there who wishes to address this? Seeing no one wishes to come up and address this, we'll go to our commissioners. Commissioner Robin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Everything seems to be in order, and the site has preliminary engineering approval already. I don't have any problem with this project at all.
Thank you, Commissioner Robin. Commissioner Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if it's the same owners as the one in Bridgeview, but I mean, that's a nice-looking facility there. This is definitely, I mean, you know, some things need to replace Wendy's, and this is a good option for us. So I have no problem with that.
Thank you, Commissioner Paul. Commissioner Shalaby?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe that it's good use of the space, so I wish you luck.
Thank you. Commissioner Schuessler?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have one question for staff. This site shares a driveway, ingress-egress to LaGrange Road with the Dunkin' Donuts to the north. Is the way it's designed, there's always been a problem with that shared driveway with the cars coming in and going out. Would it be better to take one parking space and kind of increase the size of that so that you can stack more vehicles waiting to go out on LaGrange Road? Have you looked at that problem?
As it sits today, they've met the requirements of the stacking requirements as described in the Land Development Code, and that item did not come up in our previous engineering review or any previous review by staff.
The problem I'm talking about is there's plenty of room to stack on their site, but when the vehicles are going to make that sharp left-hand turn into the shared driveway, they're oftentimes sitting at an angle to LaGrange Road. Right in there, yeah.
Let's see
I guess then my question is, would it be better to move that entryway back a little bit so they can make the left-hand turn so they're at a 90-degree angle to LaGrange Road once they get up to the property line?
Oh, this when they're making this left-hand turn.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you can only go right once you
Right,
get
yeah,
to
once
LaGrange
you get
Road.
to right,
So I'm talking
exactly.
about the left-hand turn to get into the shared driveway from the Andes site.
Okay, so you're saying when they exit the drive aisle here, they come this way.
Then they have to make a sharp left turn, right, yeah.
So you're saying to decrease the size of this
Yes.
island?
I'm asking whether that would make sense, to move that island back.
You mean move the aisle to the west?
Move the island right there
One parking
to the east. Yes, move that
Oh, to
island
the
to the
east.
east.
Let us take a look at it.
I was going to say, I don't need an answer tonight. I've just asked you look at that and work with the petitioner if that would make sense to do that.
We'll
Since
put that
there's
in the
plenty of
condition.
parking, losing one parking place wouldn't be a major thing.
We'll
I
take a
wouldn't
look
think.
at it, and in fact, we will run some auto turns to make sure that turn radii are sufficient to accommodate that turn.
Thank you. I have no further questions. Mr. Chairman, I agree with the statements of the other board members.
Thank you, Commissioner Schuessler. We should put this in as a condition, I would think. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, for that condition, can we add that as a condition to work with staff to evaluate?
That's exactly
the
how
options?
I'm adding it, yeah.
Thank you.
What would you call that? The north, what's it, the curb? Is it, what would we call that?
Landscape island,
Okay.
or their primary access point as well.
I got it. I'm fine with all the commissioners' comments. I agree with everything, and I think we'll move forward with a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move to accept as findings of fact of this Plan Commission the findings of fact set forth in this staff report dated March 13th, 2018. I move to recommend to the Village Board approval of a special use permit for a restaurant with a drive-through with modifications to allow a drive aisle in between the building and the street and increase the number of parking spaces from 21 to 49, probably 48 that night.
No, petitioner's going to work.
Okay, got it. Okay, and depicted in the preliminary site plan, titled Preliminary Site Plan, prepared by Intech Consultants, Inc., dated February 16th, 2017.
Second.
Okay, and I move to recommend to the Village Board.
oh,
We
yeah.
will take a vote on that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't have it in front of me.
Oh, right.
All in favor? Or-
Aye.
Aye.
In the first motion, aye.
Okay.
Okay. And I move to recommend to the Village Board approval of the preliminary site plan titled Preliminary Site Plan. Did that one already, right? Okay, so, no.
No, you're right.
By Intech Consultants, Inc., and dated February 16th, 2017, subject to the following conditions. 1, meet all final engineering and building code-related items. 2, work with staff to address the northwest landscape island.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Continue.
Okay, I move to recommend to the Village Board approval of the preliminary landscape plan titled Landscape Plan prepared by Design Perspectives, Inc., as shown on pages LP 100, LP 500, and TP 100, and dated March 10th, 2017, subject to the following conditions. 1, submit a final landscape plan, which must reference the final grading in the site plans and in coordination with the final engineering submittal.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
And I move to recommend to the Village Board approval of the elevations titled Preliminary Elevations on sheet number 8200, prepared by Craig A. Schneider, AIA, and dated January 31st, 2018, subject to the following conditions. All changes must be made prior to the board meeting. 1, screen all mechanical equipment, either at grade level or with landscaping or hidden behind the roof line. And 2, all masonry must be of anchored veneer type masonry with 2.625-inch minimum thickness. And 3, signs are subject to additional review and approval via the sign permitting process, and additional restrictions may apply. All changes must be made by the petitioner prior to the board meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Now we move to the one that I think everybody's interested in. Petition number 2017-0772, Smith Crossing Phase 3 expansion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The petitioner is requesting an amendment to an existing special use permit for congregate elderly care and site plan, landscape plan, and elevation approvals in order to construct and operate Phase 3 of the Smith Crossing Senior Living Facility. This petition is in response to a high demand for Smith Crossing services and not really enough physical capacity to accommodate that demand. The address is 10501 Emily Lane. The size of the parcel is about 30 acres, and it's located in the I-80 Employment Planning District in the mixed residential planning designation. It's in the mixed-use district core zoning district and has been since the original approval. As I mentioned, the land use is congregate elderly housing, and that's not changing. In terms of mobility, Orland Parkway and Orland Parkway west of where 183rd and Orland Parkway intersect is considered a major arterial road, and it's operated by the Village of Orland Park. 183rd west of that intersection I just mentioned is considered a major collector, as is 104th Avenue, both Orland Park roads. And then Emily Lane, which is an internal road within the Smith Crossing campus, is a private local road. The petitioner is proposing two modifications to the special use permit related to the detention basin setbacks and parking and garbage enclosures between the building and street. So as Ed mentioned, this is the first step of the due process, part of our development review process. There was a pre-petition process, which isn't kind of outlined here, but the petitioner petitioned, the staff reviewed it, and now we're here at Plan Commission meeting to discuss. As I mentioned, the Smith Crossing is located in the I-80 planning district. It's highlighted in red here, outlined in black. That's the Smith Crossing campus. So the original approval for Smith Crossing, I'm sorry, let me start again there. The village's comprehensive plan was approved in 2013 and considers the I-80 planning district the village's front yard to I-80, or the I-80 interstate. And it outlined the vision for the regional mixed-use campus district, which I'll talk about later. Current zoning for the site, as I mentioned, is core here, which is a mixed-use planning district. To the north is the Eagle Ridge subdivision, which is comprised of R4 and R3 zoning. To the east is the regional mixed-use campus district, which is newly created in 2017 by the village. To the west is Evergreen Senior Living, which is also core, and Stone Church, which is E1. So as I mentioned, this is the third phase of the Smith Crossing project. In 1999, the original approval was granted for the special use permit. At that time, 104th Avenue, which is ran along the east side of the Smith Crossing property, was vacated by the village. In 2003, Smith Crossing approached the village and wished to amend that site plan from the original site plan, and that proposal was granted in 2003, and then in 2010, they returned for further building expansion. So this is the original 1999 site plan that was approved by the site. You can see 183rd Street here, Orland Parkway, 104th Avenue here. And then the original kind of site layout, or the circulation layout, was more orthogonal versus what we see there today. So then in 2013, when they come back, when Smith Crossing came back for a site plan amendment, they included the Emily Lane, which we're all familiar with today, as well as a little stub to the south, which connected to Orland Parkway. In 2010, that stub was removed, and Emily, I think 200,000 plus square foot were added to the site, but the current kind of configuration of the Emily Parkway is how it is today. So Smith Crossing is currently proposing the addition of a 45,000 square foot building, 2 stories, which would include 46 units for short-term rehabilitation. It also includes a rerouting of Emily Lane to connect at 2 points with 183rd Street. It closes off the vehicular access from Emily Lane to Orland Parkway. It limits the left turn lane from Orland Parkway into Emily Lane to emergency vehicles only. It proposes the addition of an emergency vehicle access lane with swing gates along the south side of the building expansion. It expands upon the internal road and sidewalk system. Proposes a new parking lot with 60 additional parking spaces and the construction of 2 new stormwater detention basins. So here's the current proposed plan for Smith Crossing. You'll notice right away that Emily Lane basically dead ends at this T intersection, which would then reconnect at 183rd Street. If you zoom in a little closer, these are the 2 detention ponds that I mentioned, which will be required to handle stormwater for stormwater management purposes. This green area is the new connector road to 183rd Street as proposed. This purple lot is the new 60-lot parking space parking lot. The orange is the new building facility. This red is the emergency access lane, which was requested by the Mokina Fire District. And then this is the left turn lane, which would, in a sense, be closed off to vehicular access. So in looking at what the Smith Crossing site plan I guess this yellow line here indicates, represents what Emily Lane currently does, where it connects the intersection of 183rd Street and 104th with Orland Parkway. The proposal would be to terminate that connection, and basically all, or majority of vehicular traffic into Smith Crossing would come from 183rd Street. This is the emergency access lane and the current location of Emily Lane. Smith Crossing, I think, to their credit, has provided or aligned this point right here, where the new access road would connect with 183rd Street, in line with the current or existing drive aisle, so as to limit the light glare into the existing buildings, residential buildings. Excuse me. Also proposed is an addition of the campus landscape plan, or the site landscape plan. And you'll notice right away that it is an abundance of trees and shrubs and additional landscaping for the site, which will help kind of blend in to the existing campus feel at Smith Crossing. The elevations are, as proposed, mimic or harmonize well with the current architecture at Smith Crossing, and they comply with all land development codes requirements. There is a request, as I mentioned, for a modification to the special use permit. There are 2 points or 4 points, I think, that the detention basin is within 25 feet of development, which is a modification of the land development per the land development code, and the placement of parking between the building and street. And both of the modifications staff supports due to the fact that Smith Crossing is bordered on basically 3 sides by public roads, and any other site configuration would probably be unfeasible based on what they're proposing. So the village is requesting a 104th Avenue easement and emergency access, better clarification of how the emergency access in Orland Parkway would function. And I'd like to go into a little description of how and why that's the case. In 1999, as I mentioned, the village vacated 104th Avenue. And this is basically what that Orland Crossing site looked like at the time. We ghosted in what Orland Parkway looks like today, but obviously it wasn't there at the time. And obviously we all know what Orland Crossing looks like now. It hasn't fully transformed from a rural setting, but it's heading in that direction. In 1999, zoning was different as well. Smith Crossing was zone core and still is zone core. However, the majority of the sites around it were zone E1 or I, which are much less intense land zoning districts than currently. As I mentioned, the village passed the regional mixed-use campus in 2017, and what the village envisions for that area, the RMC, is drastically different than the E1 zoning that was in place in 1999. You see, the vision would be about 2 million square feet of office, ample recreation entertainment areas, research, hotels, residential units. So this is very different vision, at least for this area than was the case in 1999. The comprehensive plan also calls out 183rd Street, Orland Parkway as a major or critical corridor. So it just highlights the importance of Orland Parkway as a connection point between LaGrange Road and Wolf Road. This is information we pulled from IDOT's website in terms of traffic flow. You'll see in 1999, Orland Parkway 183rd, or Orland Parkway didn't exist, so really 183rd Street, there was about 100 daily trips. In 2014, that increase has gone up by over 4,000%. So you see there's a trend for increased traffic on Orland Parkway, as well as on 104th Avenue. That increase isn't as dramatic. Obviously, it's much more modest, but the trend is for more traffic in this area. The zoning also suggests that this area is going to be much more intense in terms of land use in the future. So, if you notice here, all the lines in orange are village major arterial roads. Yellow are minor arterial, and blue are major collectors. So why is that important? Major collectors connect arterials, basically. That kind of sums up. And what you'll notice right away is the Forest Preserve, the Grasslands and Grasslands South. Basically, when that happened in 2011, at least for the Grasslands South, that really precluded any sort of east or north-south connection between 179th Street and Orland Parkway. And so the existing connection is 104th Avenue. And 183rd basically acts as an extension of 104th Avenue currently, because there isn't a connection between this point and this point, which is why one of the reasons why the village is requesting the easement. In terms of a local impact, as I mentioned before, the vast majority of traffic, there is an access point to Smith Crossing along here, but I'm sure Smith Crossing could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is mostly back of house traffic. So most of the traffic will now be diverted from Orland Parkway to 183rd Street. And this is what that easement line might look like. The village is requesting a 30-foot easement, which would suggest a collector street configuration, so continuation of the current 104th Avenue scenario. It would not become Wolf Road or LaGrange Road. If it was, we would be asking for a much more substantial right-of-way. There's also the question of this property, this is the Horton office complex. The property to the north, as you can tell, there's very limited public or viable access off of 104th Avenue or Orland Parkway. They would basically have to get access through this private property. So one of the other advantages of this 104th Avenue easement, and obviously, I guess maybe I could explain what an easement is versus a right-of-way. An easement is really just basically something that would be on Smith Crossing's plat that would preclude any sort of future development for this area. And it would state that this area is designated for potential future extension of 104th Avenue. The village isn't taking this property. This would remain Smith Crossing's property. It would just be designated for future access. And then in terms of the emergency access, the left turn lane, as it would be closed off to vehicular traffic, and this has been the traffic pattern since Smith Crossing was developed. This median would be, I think the staff originally asked that this would be a rumble strip. Smith Crossing has requested that would be just an extension of the grass median, and staff is okay with that. That site plan would just need to be updated to reflect that. And the staff has also requested that instead of an asphalt emergency access lane, Smith Crossing would install what we would call grasscrete, or it's basically asphalt that it's made to look like grass. And there's a better description, but that's basically what it means. The reason why is we're asking for that, or the grass median, is to make sure that people are 100% clear that this is no longer a left turn lane into Smith Crossing. And that grasscrete would help kind of maintain the status quo in terms of how the site looks like from Orland Parkway. So as I mentioned, there are 2 modifications to the special use permit. Those are also granted via the previous special use permits. And these are the motion conditions. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mazza. I've got a
Thank you,
question for you. At what point in time do you believe that the village will be putting in 104th Avenue?
It's not determined yet, but it's not at least for 5 years. We know that we will not be doing it. It's something beyond that.
So it'll stay as it exists today
Yes,
for an undeterminable amount of time?
that's true.
Okay. All right, thank you. Petitioner, is the petitioner present? Would the petitioner like to come and add anything? Mr. Hurd, were you going to make a comment?
Yes. What I was going to also add that we're asking for this easement. What that also means that depending how the future information comes to us, we may or may not build that roadway, but we just want to have that flexibility now that if needed, we can build it.
So that's really there to access or relieve the traffic coming off of Wolf Road and LaGrange Road to access it off 104th to the regional mixed-use district?
That's correct, and also to relieve traffic pressure on 183rd as the development will happen in this area. This will allow us to connect directly from 104th to Orland Parkway and not allow or reduce the pressure that may happen east-west on 183rd.
It'll lessen the amount of traffic going through there.
That's true, sir.
Okay, thank you. Petitioner.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in matters before the commission this evening? Thank you, sir. Your name and address for the record.
My name is John Anderson. My address is 1340 North Astor Street, Chicago, Illinois.
Chairman, I can't hear him.
Oh, can you hear me now?
No.
But there's,
Is it on?
I don't know. What does one turn?
The worst sound system in the United States.
It's not on. That one's
Yes,
on.
okay, this is it. Okay.
Thank you.
Once again, John Anderson. residing at 1340 and North Astor Street, Chicago, Illinois. I'm here on behalf of Smith Crossing. I represent them in this matter, and we have tonight with us both our Kevin McGee, who is Chief Operating Officer of Smith Crossing, as well as our land planner, both of whom would like to make presentations.
Get closer to that mic.
Both of whom would like to make presentations before you at this point. And then I would like to conclude with some a summary of where we sit at this on these matters. Okay.
How many of your people are going to come up to speak tonight?
Well, on behalf of Smith Crossing, of our group, we have.
We have to bring them all up
The reason
and
we
swear them
asked that
in.
we can swear them in all at the
Okay,
same
that'd be
time.
great. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you please raise your right hand. Do all of you swear before the commission to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth this evening? I do. Thank you very much. As you speak individually, if you'll just give your name and address, it'd be most appreciated. Thank you.
Bear with me one second. Good evening.
Your name and address for the record.
Kevin McGee, 2128 West 107th Place, Chicago, Illinois.
Kevin, what's your last name?
McGee, M-C-G-E-E.
Thank you.
Thank you. It is an honor to stand here tonight before you as being born and raised in the village of Orland Park. I stand before you as the president and CEO of Smith Senior Living, which is the parent company to Smith Crossing. We are a not-for-profit organization that has been serving seniors for the past 90 years. Our original campus is located at 113th and Western in the Morgan Park neighborhood of Chicago. And nearly 20 years ago, our organization was approached by the owner of the land that we currently own, as well as the village, as the village and the owner were trying to come up with the concept of Orland Parkway with an industrial parkway. And the village wanted to figure out different areas or ideas to act as a buffer between an industrial parkway and the Eagle Ridge development. And as such, one idea was to build a retirement community. So the owner approached us to see if we would have a desire to build a retirement community out in Orland Park. And this made a lot of sense to us because with the population migration coming out of Chicago down to the southwest side, a lot of the children of the residents we serve were moving out into this area. So there was a number of discussions as to what kind of community we would build and as to how it would lay out. Some of the concerns were raised, which was a connection of 104th Avenue to Orland Parkway. And we did not want that, of course, because of our concern for traffic. And at that time, in May of 1999, the village abandoned that road, as was mentioned in the previous presentation. 3 months later, our organization did purchase a property on May 5th of 1999. But that was only given after the assurance that the village gave to our organization that that road from 104th Avenue and to Orland Park would not be put in. And it was also a commitment to the members, residents of Eagle Ridge. And as such, we developed our master plan, which we have seen tonight and we'll see again later. We are proud to be in the community. We serve the community in a number of ways. As example, we have Renaissance Academy offers classes for seniors. We try to invite the community in to use our space. One thing that I'm very proud of is we work with Moraine Valley and St. Xavier University. As we know, there's a nursing shortage, and we allow our clinical spaces to be used for students, for future CNAs and registered nurses to do their clinical hours there.
And just last year, we had over 2,200 hours of students on our site developing their skills for the future. Today, we have over 300 residents at Smith Crossing call home. As a not-for-profit, we make a commitment to them that if they ever spend their resources down, we'll never ask them to leave, and we fundraise for that. And today, we have about 250 employees from the surrounding area. Tonight, we're here to talk about our third expansion. I would like to point out the first expansion was a $60 million investment on Orland Parkway, on top of which Smith Senior Living donated $15 million when that commitment was made to not have that road come to Orland Parkway. That was in 2004. In 2012, we made another $35 million expansion on our campus, and today we're looking to make another $22 million investment on Orland Parkway, which will be a total of $117 million. We are preparing for the next generations of seniors that need rehab, and we are asking for approval tonight for the expansion of a 46 skilled short-term rehab stay. Will County has been identified as one of the 100 fastest growing counties in the country, and as such, the state of Illinois from time to time will run studies on a bed need, a skilled care bed need. When we submitted our application in August, there was a 42 bed need. We asked for a variance and we applied for 46. After we filed our application, the state of Illinois came out with a report saying that there is actually a 276 skilled bed need, which was, of course, to our favor given the population growth. So I'm proud to say we did get approval from the Certificate of Need Board on February 28th, as we stated our case. Frank Guajardo is the executive director here tonight, and he and his staff have to turn away 30 Medicare referrals, inpatient referrals per week from local hospitals such as Silver Cross and Palos Hospital. The hospitals have written letters of support for our project. So at this time, I'm going to invite Andy Heinen with Kimley Horn, who's our civil engineer, to talk about the site and again our concerns in opposition to the easement. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it.
State your name and address, please.
Absolutely. So my name is Andy Heinen. I'm with Kimley Horn and Associates. My address is 1001 Warrenville Road in Lyle, Illinois. I'm the civil engineer on the project. I'm a professional engineer in the state of Illinois, and I've been practicing for about 20 years. So thank you for having me tonight. I appreciate it. What I would like to cover tonight is 3 items: history of Smith Crossing, and Mike did a wonderful job in regards to providing the overall summary and the history over the last 20 years. So there's a couple points I want to hit on that, but I promise you I won't repeat. Try not to repeat a lot of information. I do want to go through the proposed site plan, but also primarily focus on our concerns with the 30-foot easement that the Village of Orland Park is asking us to grant along our east property line. So as Mike indicated, this is the 1999 master plan. This plan was approved by the Village of Orland Park.
Mr. Heinen, hold on.
Yes.
You have a pointer there?
I do. Is
Oh,
that
okay. I was going to ask you, you gave me, okay, go ahead.
Is that okay if I use
Yeah,
the pointer?
absolutely. I was going to ask him to give you one.
Shortly after this plan was approved, the easement along the right-of-way along 104th Avenue was vacated. And as Kevin mentioned, Smith Crossing and Smith Senior Living purchased that property with knowledge that that right-of-way was vacated. And the master plan was accommodated with that vacation too. So as you can see, as Mike mentioned, there's 2 access points along 183rd, one at the northeast corner and then one on the northwest corner. And it was master planned in regards to knowing that we're not going to have a major roadway thoroughfare. Sorry, if we can go back, yeah. Without knowing that there's a major thoroughfare and major roadway in our backyard, essentially. So once we received approval and once Smith Crossing closed on the property, they hired a development team. And with that development team, they generated a revised site plan back in 2003, essentially phase 1. Mike went through this plan. There were a couple modifications made. One, we weren't showing the access on 183rd right here. We did propose the access along Orland Parkway here. And the majority of all this was built except for this extension here. So that roadway along with those 3 villas was not constructed at the time, and it had to do with market demand. There was more market demand for the proposed independent living, skilled nursing, and assisted living. So the majority of this was built, all this was built in 2003, except for this extension here, but with the knowledge that there was not going to be extension of 104th Avenue down to Orland Parkway with those proposed improvements. In 2010, we came back with our proposed site plan with proposed modifications and proposed improvements. Essentially added 3 buildings, 2 independent living buildings that were connection to the existing independent building, and then 1 assisted living building, which was a connection to the existing assisted living building along with associated parking. It was mentioned that the villas and the roadway, private drive, was excluded from this site plan, but it's never intended on not being built. They still want to build those villas. 2010, during the recession, there wasn't the market demand associated with that, and they still want to reserve the right associated with building those villas. This is the current aerial that we've seen in regards to what has been built. So again, this area is undeveloped, and our focus is really on the western half of Smith Crossing where our proposed expansion is. Mike went through a lot of these details in regards to the proposed expansion, but this plan is a little bit different than the current plan. This is the original site plan that we submitted and sat down with the Village of Orland Park. This was May of last year, so almost a year ago. You can see the existing building, the proposed building is next to the existing building here. We need the connection associated with this building with the skilled nursing or assisted living. Existing Emmeline Lane comes down through here, so that's why we need to redirect Emily Lane. And at the time, we were proposing on connecting Emmeline Lane to Orland Parkway a little bit farther north of the existing access, which is roughly right here. At that time, village staff actually recommended saying they didn't like the proximity of this connection to 183rd, so they asked us to relocate that access point to 183rd, which was consistent with the 1999 plan that was originally proposed. Smith Crossing evaluated that. They liked that option, primarily because this is their front entrance, and having access off 183rd is essentially you're proposing or you're coming in with your front entrance versus if you're coming in off of Orland Parkway, essentially that's your back door. So they like that concept of coming off 183rd. So you can see this is the proposed site plan. Mike mentioned that we are strategic in lining that up with the alley across the street so as not to affect the residents. And this, again, this is the proposed site plan showing the building improvements, parking lot improvements. All right, so in regards to the 30-foot easement, we wanted to talk about the roadway networks, and again, Mike did a good job of providing the overview of the roadway networks. As Mike mentioned, we've got LaGrange Road to the east, Wolf Road to the west, 104th, 108th, 179th, 183rd. So this is where Smith Crossing is located. I didn't want to get technical tonight, and Mike actually mentioned this in his presentation, but essentially collector roads are low to moderate capacity roads that serve to move traffic from local streets to arterial roads. So essentially what that is The residential subdivisions and commercial subdivisions along collector roads are intended to collect the traffic from those subdivisions and route them to arterial roads. Arterial roads are roads that deliver traffic from the collectors and provide a high capacity. So essentially, those roads are intended on transporting traffic in and out of communities. These are the current roadway designations. Red is the arterial roads, so LaGrange Road, arterial, Orland Parkway, and Rolfe Road are all arterial roads. Collector roads, 108th Avenue, 104th Avenue, 183rd. If you take a look at the residential subdivisions associated or in this area, a lot of them connect to collector roads and not arterial roads. It's the purpose of these collector roads to route them to arterials and then essentially provide traffic in and out. Our concern is that if we make a connection from 104th Avenue at this point down to Orland Parkway, essentially what we're doing is this, is we're creating a collector road, and essentially what was a collector road is going to be acting and have more of a presence of an arterial road. So all this development that's happening along Orland Parkway, currently right now, if these people that work here want to go west to Wolf Road or west go home, without this connection, essentially, they would have to go down 183rd to get onto 104th Avenue. By opening that up, essentially, you're creating a lot more traffic from this future development to go down 104th Avenue. And that's what we're concerned about. We don't want traffic going in our back door, and I think the residents of Eagle Ridge and the residents north of Eagle Ridge don't want all that traffic to go down 104th Avenue to create a lot of safety concerns. So this is a picture of 104th Avenue looking north. This is Oklahoma Court right there. I think this picture says a lot, where essentially it's a two-lane road. You can see the speed limit is 20 miles per hour. It's not designated for trucks right now. And also it doesn't have designated left turn lanes. So there's several areas along 104th Avenue that don't have designated left turn or right turn lanes. So by introducing a lot of the traffic from Orland Parkway to go down 104th, this creates a safety concern for the residents. When people want to turn left into their subdivision, they're going to be stuck here. There's going to be definite safety concerns associated with that. The other point I wanted to hit on was the villas. And you've seen the site plan, and we talked about the fact that, even though in 2010 we didn't show this expansion, that Smith Senior Living wants to reserve the rights associated with that. As we discussed, this has been master planned, not knowing that there's going to be, a roadway coming through here. And there's several concerns about connecting this from the villas, but also from the existing lift station at the southeast corner of the property. The existing lift station currently, right now, is at the southeast corner of Smith Crossing within the right-of-way, if I can go. So it's currently right there. And what the village is requesting is a 60-foot easement, 30 feet on either side. That existing lift station would be in conflict of the proposed right-of-way, or of the proposed road. So that would have to be relocated to a different location, which would cost the village hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. It also sends an indication that village staff, back in the day, did not anticipate a road to come through here, and actually designed and constructed, an existing lift station that was, not anticipated to be in conflict. The other thing is with the villas, with this road, if we did put a road through here, you can see that this existing villa right here, that's constructed. And with the proposed improvements for the roadway, we'd have to reconstruct the private drive back to the roadway. We don't know if this would be operable in regards to getting access to this unit, but also for future dedications or for future use of these villas, to have a major thoroughfare, major roadway, essentially makes these units either non-existent or not marketable to build those. So that's our concern associated with extending, 104th Avenue down. Again, that's the lift station that we talked about. It's in this, in this structure here. Where the road is coming is essentially right through here, so that would have to be moved. This is an aerial roadway extension showing the villas. The road essentially would come down through here. It would impact this villa here, and then greatly impact the future villas, being right next to a major thoroughfare. So finally, this is from the Orland Park staff report, where it talks about this extension is required to provide the future improved access to Orland Parkway, which would be the main road, and I emphasize main road, linking future developments in the regional mixed-use campus district. Smith Crossing and Smith Senior Living, they have concerns with a main road being right next to or right on their property. It's going to hurt the value of their property. It's going to hurt the marketability for those units, not only the villas, but also the rest of their campus. And it's also going to hurt the safety associated with their residents. So I speak on behalf of Smith Senior Living, but I also think I speak on behalf of the residents here of Eagle Ridge, where they don't want more traffic, down 104th Avenue, because right now that's designated as a collector road. And by opening that up, really the intent is going to be acting as an arterial road and cause major safety concerns for those residents. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Kevin. Talk about his concerns about the setback.
Thank you, Mr. Heinen.
Thank you.
I'll be brief. Pointer. I'll learn how to point this. So thank you again, Kevin McGee. The concern that Andy brought up is essentially this duplex that is sitting right here would have, in our opinion, would not be marketable or desirable for potential residents. So that is about close to $700,000 in entrance fees. These other 6 villas or 3 duplexes, if they were not to come in, would be a loss of another potential $2 million in entrance fees. And those 8 units would have about a loss of somewhere around $363,000 a year. We oppose the easement, obviously, for a lot of reasons, for safety, and we are also concerned that 104th Avenue will become the next Ravinia Drive. Ironically, I came from Smith Crossing today. I took 104th Avenue, 159th, Ravinia Drive over to here. We're really concerned that we'll become the next Ravinia Drive. And I'd just like to remind everyone in this room that the village made a commitment to us in 1999 when we purchased that property to abandon that road. And our organization committed $15 million and millions of dollars of development on Orland Parkway to serve this community. We would ask you to approve our project, but take out the requirement for the easement for 104th Avenue to Orland Parkway. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. You're Mr. McGee, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That concludes your presentation and your comments. Is there anybody out there who wishes to comment on this petition? Come on up. Get up to the microphone, raise your right hand, and Commissioner Robin will swear you in.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in matters before the commission this evening?
I do.
Thank you, ma'am. Your name and address for the record.
Barb Bennett, 10413 Wyoming Court, Eagle Ridge. I live on the corner of Eagle Ridge and 104th, and I have to agree with Smith Crossing, who is a wonderful neighbor of ours. We have several residents here from Eagle Ridge, and that's our concern, that 104th Street would be opened up with the development of Grassland South, we've had a lot more traffic in that area, and the 20-mile speed limit is ignored. So I would have to agree, and I think my neighbors also agree with the 104th Street extension to 183rd is not what we're interested in.
You might be surprised to find out that the 20-mile-an-hour limit, it's probably ignored by the residents who live there. Quite a few times, there's been studies in various areas within the village of Orland Park. And Commissioner Urban mentioned to me Wheeler Drive. They used to speed down Wheeler Drive 40 miles an hour. And they've put stops in there and speed limit signs and all sorts of things. And it's no longer a racetrack, as you might say. And it's been found out that it was the residents who did the speeding. Nobody else used it as a shortcut.
Well, in this case, they do use it as a shortcut, and
To where?
having,
Shortcut
well, to
to
get
where?
to Wolf Road. They come down from 179th, they come south to 183rd, make a right-hand turn, and they get to Wolf Road that way.
Possibly.
Well, it's true. I live there, so I know. But,
Possibly.
and I'm not saying that the residents don't speed. I mean, most of the residents in Eagle Ridge are senior citizens, and not saying that they don't speed, but, you know, we do appreciate our area, and that's our concern.
Okay, is that your comment?
That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sure.
I can't read it.
Okay, I'll go. When you're done, I'll go.
Thank you, Mrs. Bennett. Is there anyone else?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in matters before the commission this evening?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Your name and address for the record.
My name is Donald Lupinski, Lupinski, not related to the other Lupinski.
You said LU, right?
I did, sir.
Okay.
I want to make that perfectly clear to the board.
Okay, we've got it.
Thank you. My concerns this evening are on where they're going to place the building, the new building. There is a dry retention pond there right now with natural plants growing in there that are native to the state of Illinois. So their intention is to bury all that and construct a building on top of that. I don't know if anybody has done any test borings of the soil there, if it would hold that structure. I'm a retired carpenter of 35 years. I know a little bit about something, so I know what I'm talking about, sir. And on the other side, there's another dry retention pond with flowers and plants that are native to the state of Illinois that they want to backfill to put the parking lot and fill it up with asphalt. And I think eventually that would sink also. Those are my two concerns about the building and the parking lots. My third concern is the exit coming onto 183rd Street, where they are proposing that when you make a right turn off of Orland Parkway coming down 183rd going eastbound, that is the highest point of 183rd Street. It falls from there to 104th Avenue, I would say approximately 50 feet. Where they have that cutoff coming onto 183rd Street, from the right turn, it's maybe 30 feet. And if somebody is coming around 183rd at 20 miles an hour, and somebody is pulling out of Emily Lane onto 183rd, left or right, there could be a problem there, because people don't go 20 miles an hour. I know that. I live there also.
Not even the residents?
Not even the residents.
Thank you.
that is a very big concern of mine, the traffic. And with summer coming, as you gentlemen all well know, 95% of the people that live there are seniors. I can speak for myself also. And people, they walk on the sidewalk, but when there's a group, they like to go on the streets. They'll ride their bicycle, they'll push grandma in a wheelchair or walking down in her cane. They're very concerned, and again, there's going to be a lot of traffic there, and I think the traffic does not belong there.
On 183rd, you're saying?
Yes, sir. I think it would be too congested for everybody living there. And there's a lot of people walk their dogs. There's kids that roller skate. There's adults that roller skate. They use the street. It's only 2-3 blocks long. I know 183rd, I don't think we'll see it in our lifetime that it will be extended going eastbound. It may happen someday in the future. I don't know what the plan is for the village of Orland. 104th Avenue, that would be ideal to go through. But this developer don't want it because they put the villas in the wrong place originally. If they would have moved them 20 more feet going westbound, they wouldn't have had that problem today. But now they're crying, oh, we got people living in villas there, and they don't want to hear the traffic or the noise. Too bad. 104th Avenue should make the connection, sir, to Orland Parkway, my opinion.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Lipinski.
Thank you very much.
Well, we got pros and cons here. Is there anybody else who's going to come up and speak? The lady over here, and then, sir, you after the lady, okay?
I'm Frances Fiermeyer, and I live at 18249 Oklahoma Court.
Frances.
What's your last name?
Fiermeyer.
Fiermeyer. Ms. Fiermeyer.
Fuehrmeyer.
I don't know that's you until you swear to it. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth and matters before the commission this evening? Thank you very much,
I'm just asking Smith Crossings, where's the rehabilitation building going? Is there, your building there, right? In that little spot where? Oh, right there. Oh, okay. And also, what about emergency vehicles? Where will they go in and out? Like the fire engines and, well, that right there? That won't be coming off of 104?
Right, so, correct, yeah, it would be the same thing. If there was a problem with the building, it would go on the south end.
Who is that speaking?
Yeah, Chris August.
You got to come up to the microphone. We got to swear you in.
You ready, sir? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth and matters before the commission this evening?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, sir. Your name and address for the record.
Name is Chris August, August. Address is 20384 Mackinac Point Drive in Frankfurt. So to answer the question, so emergency vehicles, in the event, let's just start with ambulance services. So correct, they would, we know Volcano Firehouse sits right here, or even Orland Park is up on Wolf Road. They would come, turn on to 183rd, enter the building here, and then service this building here. They could service our existing building here, as well as go to the main entrance and service that if they need to. So in the event of a fire, same thing, they would, one of the purposes of this egress road here is for emergency trucks in case they had to take care of this part of the building. We do have the entrance down here for fire purposes. And the same thing, if there's a large fire, you have multiple fire departments. So you would come 183rd, turn in here, they can come down 104th, and then service the building. So quite a few points.
Those were the two things that I have. And I think the rehab building is needed, so that's great. That's a plus.
Francis, are you done?
Yes.
Thank you.
Francis, you can talk more if you want. Thank you, ma'am. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in matters before the commission this evening?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, sir. Your name and address for the record.
My name is Don Martusowski, and I've been a resident of Orland Park for over 47 years. My wife and I, some years ago, started thinking about retirement. And we selected Smith Crossing because they have a lot to offer. They would take care of us for life, no matter what was happening. And as you have heard tonight, they are continuing to fight for us residents of the village to protect our safety. When we moved into Smith Crossing, it's been 15 months already. We have found that they have lived up to all of their commitments to take care of the elderly. We would hope that others who are making decisions about running streets through a community full of elders and then taking up our land and devaluating our homes. I happen to be one of the residents of those villas. So I object very loudly, and on behalf of the 300 and something residents of all of Smith Village, we all object to making that change. So we thank you for your time and your consideration, and we would look forward to you reconsidering putting that expressway through. And to answer somebody else's question without getting into a big debate, the seniors in that development do not wheel their friends or relatives around in the streets, as somebody had previously stated here. We all care about taking care of each other, and I'm sure all of you are concerned about who's going to take care of you as a senior, and some of you in the audience, if you haven't thought about it already. So again, I thank you for your time, and we object on behalf of the 300 residents of 104th Street going all the way through.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You come on up as soon as Don here is done. I had to use your first name. I had a tough time pronouncing your last name.
One. Think of Mickey Mouse song, M-A-R-T-I-S-A-U-S-K-I. That's how I tell people to say it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in matters before the commission this evening?
Yes, I do. My name is Judy Lewis. I serve on the Board of Trustees at Smith Crossing and Smith Senior Living as well, but I live in Eagle Ridge as well. I was on the original development team of Smith Crossing in 2000, and now I'm full circle as a trustee, and I enjoy serving in this capacity. And I'm certainly proud to be a resident for the past 18 years in Orland Park. I had to say something because I'm just curious about how you're connecting the approval of our request for the approved certificate of need expansion of our 46 rehab unit, and it's required that we give an easement that's not even related to the expansion program. I don't understand the legalities of that. Am I wrong to question that? That's my question.
I'll give you an answer. I'll get an answer for you. Mr. Hoda, can you give her an answer to that question?
Sir,
The worst sound system in the United States.
So we have confirmed it with our attorney, the village attorney, that the extension is a regional benefit for not just the Smith Crossing area, but it is a regional benefit for the entire village of Orland Park, especially on the south side. And that is what part of this requirement that they have agreed that we could ask for this easement again, that in future, when we will need this road extension, we have an option to build it. That's the explanation that I have.
Thank you, sir.
And just one other quick question, too. The Forest Preserve, are they aware of this planned in the future extension of 104th, the new grassland area that's been developed and is being utilized a lot, including myself, biking and riding, and I know there's this potential safety issue getting across that 104th. Even now, I just wondered if,
What is your
with their
question?
position. The question is, does the Forest Preserve that spent all that money developing it, are they aware of the expansion of all of that? Just a question.
Well, didn't they get notice, receive notice? They received notice, have they responded? No response from them. But they received notice like everybody else did.
That's all I wanted to know.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
I see you, I see you.
Boy, I've got a long address, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in matters before the commission this evening?
I do.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm Joanne J. Cox. I'm the president of the Eagle Ridge Villas 2
Name and
Homeowners
address, please.
Association.
Address, please.
10720 Louisiana Court.
And I didn't hear your name.
I'm Joanne J. Cox.
Joanne J. Cack?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm kind of wearing a couple of hats tonight. I'm here representing my community, and we have one issue. We live on the other side of 183rd, very close to where the new entrance for Smith Crossing is going to be, and also very close to getting out onto the parkway from 183rd Street. It's a challenge now, without any further traffic.
How do you get out there off of that?
Pardon me?
John Charles Drive?
No, John Charles goes into 183rd.
Yes.
If you look at, I'm not sure if I can do this, but I'm going to sure try. Okay, it's not on probably, huh? Yeah, here we go, I think. Okay, here's 183rd, all right? And we are located right here. We would, let me see if I can.
Isn't that John Charles Drive?
No, this is 183rd Street.
No, the one that goes north from
That
there.
goes into what would be 104th Avenue? No.
No.
That's 104th here.
That one I'm talking
Yes.
about.
This
That's
is the
John.
183rd. This is the parkway here, all right? Right here is where we will have some problems, because what's going to happen is you're going to increase the amount of traffic trying to get out onto the parkway. And I'm sure you know that the parkway is like the Indy 500. They just whiz down there. It's hard to get out there now. We have a huge church
Stone
that is
Church.
located on Wolf Road.
Okay.
We also have another senior living facility right there. My concern is if you do not put 104th Avenue through, and I'm not for it, by the way, I don't think you should do it.
Well, I'm not going to do it.
I know you're not, but you know somebody is going to do it.
Okay.
Is it God that's going to do it? We'll have to talk to him. It's going to push more traffic down 183rd.
If you don't put it through.
whether you put it through or not, it's going to push more traffic down on
Okay.
183rd, okay? But my concern is that we're going to have a real issue right here with a lot of accidents. Because we're kind of a quiet little street right now. And our folks exit onto 183rd at John Charles. That is my issue. But I have another one for you too. If you're going to have a fire truck come down 183rd, you're going to have to widen that street because it'll never make the turn. Well, he'll be living in our property. Right here. It's a very narrow street. So when I heard the gentleman say that you were going to have fire trucks turn there to go to Emily Drive or whatever it is, to get into the nursing home there, or the rehab facility, then you're going to have issues trying to get that fire truck in there.
Don't fire trucks now go down subdivision streets to get to a fire?
Yes, they do. However, they don't come, we don't see that many people or fire trucks even coming in this way. They'll generally come in a different route, to be honest with you. So it's something, I'm just throwing this out for your consideration.
Thank you.
Now, in a previous life, I am a gerontologist. I have a doctorate in nursing, and I'm telling you, we really need those beds. And the crossing, I'm familiar with. These are very honorable people. They have excellent services, and I'm all for them. However, you have to think about the people that are living there. And my deepest sympathy goes to those who live on 104th Avenue. And I'm speaking for everyone that lives in the villas as well, because we know what the traffic is like, and we know they don't go 20 miles an hour.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, this is the condition. Nice week. I'm going to talk about the traffic study. Preliminary engineering is already approved. The fire department has made beef.
There's one over here and one over there. Are both, let me ask you something. Hold on a minute. Let me ask you two a question. Are the comments about traffic again?
Or 104th.
Or 104th Avenue? Because we really heard a lot of comments on traffic, and I don't really want to stay here till midnight listening to the repetition of the same comments, if that's okay.
I'm representing my girlfriend who is unable to be here.
All right, come on up.
She sent an email.
I don't know how to do this one,
I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
but you're not speaking for you.
Well, I'm reading from my phone. I can send you guys the email.
I'm teasing. Right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in matter before the commission this evening?
I sure do.
Thank you, ma'am. Your name and address for the record.
Okay, my name is Kathy Quilty. I live 8561 Walnut, Orland Park, Illinois. Full disclosure, not only am I an Orland Park resident, but I do work for Smith Senior Living. I got an email from Janet Polson, who back in 2010 received an email from a Robert E. Sullivan, who was a planning director in the village of Orland Park. She inquired about the expansion Smith Crossing and what was happening. And he told her, quote, "The 104th Avenue connection to Orland Parkway was recently questioned at a public meeting relating to the Smith Crossing expansion. That was the extent of it. There was no approval for this as part of the Smith project. The connection was previously opposed by the village board, as you correctly pointed out. The right-of-way was actually vacated back, so there was no place to put the road unless the right-of-way was purchased. I mean, I say purchased from the landowners. There are no plans to pursue this. Hopefully that will put your concerns." That is dated March 25th, 2010. So they told the homeowners back in 2010 that they would not expand 104th Avenue. She said that she was the president of the Eagle Ridge homeowners, and they were guaranteed when Smith Crossing came in like 2000 that they would never extend that because of the homeowners' values and everything. And then I also like to brag, though, that she says that Smith Crossing is excellent neighbors. We are with uphold to the community, and she would like to say thank you, and she will like to email anybody here who would like to hear this. So, and I have to add, I work in human resources at Smith Crossing in Smith Village, and we would bring a lot of jobs to the community, professional jobs, not mall jobs. So I just want to bring that up to there. So
Thank you.
thank you. Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. Okay.
Sir, you have a comment to make that's not about traffic?
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in matters before the commission this evening?
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Your name and address for the record.
James Balonix, 18207 Vermont Court, Orland Park, Illinois. We've been there 26 years. We're one of the original residents in that area. I'm concerned about 104th going all the way through. Now, you know, 104th is 20 miles an hour.
Look, I asked you, is there any more comments about traffic? Please, we've heard them all.
But not this one. Not what I'm going to say.
Okay.
All right, right now, we're on 45 miles an hour. We come on 104th, it goes down to 20. I'm asking, what is the speed limit going to be when you keep on going 183rd?
Well,
Because
I
the
can answer this for you. Nobody knows when 104th is going to be built, or if it's going to be built at all.
Oh,
So we
I got
can't-
the impression that it's going to be built.
No,
No?
no,
Well-
sir, they're asking for an easement for future.
Future development.
You know,
All right.
You know-
That took care of that, but I just wanted to know, just in case, if it was built, what's going to happen.
Well-
Another thing about the trucks.
Speculation.
we can't speculate that.
I want to know about the trucks coming. Would they come down 104th?
I'm not
Or
going
would
to
they come around
speculate.
183rd?
I'm not going to speculate on answering those questions. We can't do
We have
that.
no evidence.
We just gave you the answer.
We have no evidence.
We don't know if and when it's going to go through. Right now, the village is just asking for the easement for possibly in the future. And this regional mixed-use district, we don't know when that's going to happen. I mean, that's a major, major project. And it could be 20 years from now.
I won't be there.
Neither will I.
Yes, you will.
Neither will most of the people in this room, a lot of us.
I won't.
Thank you,
I'm
sir.
77 years old.
Thank you.
Forget it. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Charles Wickern,
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and
swear
nothing
to
but the
tell the whole
truth
truth.
in matters before the commission. Your name and address for the record, sir.
Charles Wickern, Wiechern, 18220 Oklahoma Court. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My problem is when your road enters 183rd, when their road enters 183rd, I'm looking for stoplights, stop signs, or what there?
Well, you can't speculate on that right now. Again,
I don't have to speculate.
Well,
If
we
it's a
can't.
fast-moving street, you're going to
we
have to
can't.
watch it.
You're talking about when 104th gets extended to
No, I don't, I'm not, 104th is out of the game.
what are you talking
I'm
about?
worried about your new road entering 183rd.
Oh, you mean from
Emily.
from Smith?
Emily
Yeah,
Lane.
Emily Lane.
Emily, he's talking about Emily Lane and 183rd.
If you put up the other picture where it shows your exit, your road.
Tell us which one you want.
That's good, that's a good enough one right there. Now, I can see traffic coming from your road to 183rd, and I think that's going to be a lot of traffic there, and it's going to have to be controlled, I believe. Okay. Traffic will then go to John Charles Drive, which is a little dirt through there, and a lot of traffic is going to be able to get into that area. That's how they'll go over to get back to 179th Street. And I think that's a serious traffic harm there.
Thank you for your comment.
That's it?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Anderson, you got a comment?
Yes, I'm not going to talk about the traffic issue itself.
Okay.
I plan to raise a slightly different issue. I'll try this one, right? This one works? Everybody can hear me, okay. There's been a lot of comment made about the extension of 104th to Orland Parkway and the traffic dilemma it will cause for people. My concern, however, is that although staff here indicates that,
Use the other microphone. It's that little one, yeah, that one.
This one?
Mm-hmm.
That a mere easement will have very little financial impact, that we still retain title to the property, and an easement just gives you a right to go over it. In fact, the easement, it actually makes it impossible for, yes, to use the property for any purpose other than perhaps put a lawn in there and mow. It constitutes really sort of an implied taking of our property, which has material value to us. It also will impact adversely the remainder of our property. And I think it's basically unjust to ask Smith's Crossing to make that kind of financial gift to the city, essentially. The city does have the powers to, whenever it wishes to build this road, which has remained a fiction for years. I was involved many years ago with St. Xavier in the building of its campus. At that time, it was thought that St. Xavier would help jumpstart the development along Orland Parkway. Now, 20 years have passed. Virtually nothing has happened. We're talking speculatively about five years from now. Maybe there'll be a road. Maybe not.
Maybe 20.
20. And yet you want us today to benefit the city for that. I feel that we should be entitled to some, if nothing else, some compensation. As I recall that there's a Fifth Amendment to our Constitution, which speaks about just compensation for the taking of private property. And I think this is tantamount to that. So I believe that this issue should be disconnected from the approval of our project and be addressed at some later date when people can actually know that something's going to happen.
Thank you.
So,
Well, we're not the elected officials here.
I understand that.
We're volunteers here.
Yes.
The elected officials make those decisions. The village board and the mayor. So we're just a recommending body to the village board.
Okay.
And we can't tell you about compensation. That's not under our charge.
Okay. But I just wish to make clear our position on all of this. And that is why we are asking that the...
You've made yourself clear.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I guess we got it all. So we'll go to our commissioners and get some other points of view. Commissioner Schuessler?
Oh, I get to be first. How did I draw the short straw? I have a couple of questions for staff, but before that, I'd like to comment on the last statement that Mr. Anderson made. I don't believe when the property was vacated that there was anything paid to the village, so I don't believe it would be unfair to require the easement. but that would require some research, but I don't think there was anything paid. That was before my time on the village board when that happened, but my recollection is it was a couple of years before I was elected that there wasn't anything paid when that vacation occurred. So to give it back, I don't think would be unfair. I have a question for the staff. Have you looked at the safety issue? Do you, in your professional opinion, would there be a safety problem here in the event that, number one, there is an easement given to the village, and number two, the roadway is extended? I mean, I'm looking at a pond there, and I see one unit that's going to be affected up to the north end, but it appears that most of the property fronts along 104th as a pond. So do you perceive there to be a safety problem, first of all?
We haven't designed anything, or any engineering work or any studies has not been done. This is based on our regional transportation plan. We need a connection at 104th to take it to Orland Parkway. That is what we know now, but we haven't done any other studies or evaluations or so. However, I will add to that is that extending this roadway allows to reduce traffic on 183rd. If you do not do that, then the traffic will go east or west on 183rd and connect to the major arterials we have. In our village, we have two major arterials, LaGrange Road and Wolf Road. So traffic will connect to those. By connecting 183rd, we will be able to relieve some pressure in future. We do not know when that is, but that is our anticipation that that's what it will do, and which in turn will help with the traffic safety.
A question was raised regarding the lift station. How do you respond to that? Having to move the lift station?
We know that that lift station is there, and based on the future developments, we are anticipating that lift station will require additional capacity, that it will have to be upgraded, it will have to be moved anyway. So if we move in that direction where we will be extending 104th, we will be moving that lift station with additional capacity to serve the additional development demand that will be coming towards us.
Thank you. I have a question for Smith Senior Living. Is there any place else on the site that the 3 villas could be built that you were talking about? Maybe Mr. McGee can answer that. He's getting up.
Sure.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi. I don't know which one to use. Back to our pointer. So the master plan really is, if you look at the whole east end of our campus is independent living. As you transition towards the west, you get towards assisted living, ultimately to skilled care. So we purposely have the villas on the east end of our campus. This duplex, essentially, these 2 units to be taken out of service. I just don't know how we could market that. And then we purposely designed our roads over here because we felt that, as I had mentioned, as people move in, our idea is to get people to move in to independent living as they age, move through the continuum of care, and that would happen along the east end of the campus. So to answer your question, it would be very much of a challenge to reroute all of this design work, which I could ask our civil engineers to come up to discuss better than I can. But there's also the views of the pond that we would also take into consideration with the villas that we could not find another site for.
I think in addition to answering your question in regards to the villas and, be placed on the east end of the property, I think if Smith Senior Living knew that there was going to be a road that was going to be extended from 104th down to Orland Park Way, they would have been more strategic in regards to the placement of the stormwater management and those villas. The 2003 plan had the villas being located here and the stormwater detention basin here. If there was knowledge of that road, I think ideally what they would have done was probably have the stormwater management along this corridor here as a buffer between that major road that's going through there. but that was not anticipated. That's what puts us in this quandary in regards to the fact that they bought the property not knowing and assuming that that road wasn't going to be extended through. So that's why the village is putting Smith Senior Living in a tough position right now, because we could have anticipated this back in 1999 to 2003, and we haven't, so.
Thank you.
I have another question. Frank, you haven't been sworn. Could you stand up, come up and be sworn?
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in matters before the commission this evening?
I do.
Thank you. Your name and address for the record.
My name's Frank Guajardo, Guajardo. Address is 22370 Pine Ridge Drive, Frankfort, Illinois.
This might require an approximation because you're not going to have this number at your fingertips, but since the villas were built, what generally has been your occupancy rate?
So I would say I've been at Smith Crossing for about 10 and a half years now. And probably the first half of my tenure there, the villas were a tough sell for us. But since our expansion, we've been running basically at 90 to 100% occupancy within the last 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all the questions. I'll make a statement now and then I'll shut up, I guess.
It works.
This really creates a tough issue, I think, for this commission and for me personally. I really like Smith Crossing. My mother-in-law lives there, has lived there for 7 years. It's a quality development. It pains me to hear the statements from Mr. McGee and the other people that they feel this is going to adversely affect their operation. However, having said that, I can see that a mistake was made in 1999, that dedication for roadway never should have been vacated. Unfortunately, I think it was vacated because of pressure from the people that live in Eagle Ridge. I happen to live in Eagle Ridge right now. I live in Eagle Ridge 2, which is a little farther north than Eagle Ridge 1. But there was a lot of resistance to the building of Smith Crossing by the people that live in Eagle Ridge. They didn't want it built because they thought it would bring traffic. No matter what happens, there's going to be traffic. When I moved into this town in 1972, there were 7,500 people and 2 traffic lights in town. I don't know how many traffic lights we have now, but it's probably 50 or something like that. As this town builds out, and it's nowhere near being built out at the present time, we have a population of 58,000 plus. And last time I looked at the numbers when I was on the village board, the projection was we will top out around 80,000 at some point. The property to the south of this development will at some point be developed, maybe not in my lifetime, maybe not in the lifetime of all of you out there that don't have as much hair as I have or have gray hair. But at some point it will be developed and there will be more traffic. So all we can do is try and accommodate the traffic in a meaningful way and not the way the village has always done it in the past. And the mistakes have been made by the village board in not allowing enough sub-arterial and arterial streets to be built. If you think about trying to go south to north between LaGrange Road and Wolf Road, there aren't too many options. And I'm not just talking about down here south, I'm talking about all the way up north. Right now, somebody who wants to go north can get there. So we're not talking about really creating another way to get there. We're creating an easier way to get there if that road were to go through. Because right now they can just go up to Orland Parkway on 183rd, make a right-hand turn, go down 183rd up to 104th, make a left-hand turn, and zip up to 159th Street. So putting it through is not going to create more traffic, as somebody said. It's just going to make it more, the traffic flow more efficient. I would like to agree with Smith Crossing and say don't do it, but I think for the long-range good of the village and having a decent traffic options and traffic pattern, we have to ask for that easement. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Schussler. Very well spoken. Commissioner Shalaby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can appreciate the presentations provided by Mr. Mazza from the village, as well as Mr. McGee from the Smith Crossing. There seems to be respectable validity on both ends, and not that many inconsistencies. My question is for Mr. Mazza, not to put you on the spot, but however, did you find any points of inconsistency with Mr. McGee's presentation in regards to traffic flow through 104th?
I don't know if I'd consider it an inconsistency. I think maybe it's a difference of opinion. I think the idea that 104th Avenue would turn into an arterial akin to LaGrange Road or Wolf Road is probably, again, unpredictable but unfeasible in my mind, as you know. So, I know they've alluded in a few occasions, and it was based on my staff report. I did say that 104th Avenue would become the major connecting point, and I probably should have said a major connecting point. In all honesty, I made a mistake. And so I guess in that regard, I would say that the idea of 104th Avenue turning into an arterial to me seems inconsistent with what we understand 104th Avenue would become.
The second question that I have, which I believe was answered by Mr. Hoda, was just going to be in regards to safety, so I appreciate your response there. I do agree with Commissioner Schussler that I think this board's put in a little bit of a tough predicament this evening based on what the village had promised in 1999, of my understanding, based on the presentation. And I have nothing further to add, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I have nothing further to add, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Commissioner Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Commissioner Schussler that, traffic has to go somewhere. We're talking about a hypothetical road that may exist at some point in the future as a trade-off for getting the rest of this project done. Now, the project has a lot of good benefits to it. Jobs, the health care of people that need it. So, I don't want to hold that up. As far as 104th goes, I think, I say keep it in there. But at some point, decisions will have to be made on that, and that will be a debate for that time. We don't know. We don't know what's going to be there. Is it going to be a 20-mile-an-hour road? Is it going to be a 40-mile-an-hour? We don't know. We don't know what the circumstances are going to be if and when that time comes. Again, there will be maybe us or other people up here or different people on the board that will have to make those decisions, and they'll be accountable to people that live there as well, trustees, mayors, whoever would be here at the time, if that time comes. I guess I'm inclined to, keep that as part of the petition, and let's build this thing now and deal with the 104th if and when the time comes. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Paul. Commissioner Robin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to put some of the residents at ease in regards to traffic and fire department safety. I have a soft spot for professionals, and the staff that we have are professional people. They have degrees in these areas, or they'll get people that have degrees in these areas. I'm going to read just a sentence from the traffic study. Based on review of existing and future conditions, the study concluded that the area traffic operations are projected to be satisfactory at all study intersections. Those are pros, professionals. Preliminary engineering. Preliminary engineering has been recommended for approval with conditions from the village engineering consultant, Christopher Burke Engineering Company. So the gentleman that had the questions about where the flowers were and the pits where something might sink, this project has preliminary engineering approval by professionals, degreed guys. Last but not least, if there's anybody in the world that would come forth and say, I can't turn my fire truck around, it would be the fire department. The fire department has not come to the village of Orland Park on that issue whatsoever. So with that in mind, I hope maybe that I've put you at ease. The other thing that I think that may put you at ease is when we read tonight's motion, because there are a number of conditions that our professionals have put on this petitioner to build this project. And he's going to have to meet them to move forward. Notice I didn't say a word about 104th Avenue, so I haven't got a clue what's going to happen there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Commissioner Robin. Look, I think this is a pretty tough deal. The residents have come in talking about not wanting 104th Avenue. You know, it's going to be a raceway and this and that. It's possible, but from my opinion, I highly doubt it. From a perspective of future planning and roadway planning, it just makes a lot of sense to get it's just a 30-foot easement today that they're asking for. It's a 30-foot easement, and it just makes a lot of sense to leave it as an easement and see how it develops, when it develops. We don't know when it's going to develop. That's what and we don't even know if that roadway is ever going to go in, because if the parcels to the south don't develop, there's going to be no reason for that roadway to go in. So to reserve a right to have an easement today for a future development makes a lot of sense. It's been done in a lot of different places in the town. And as Mr. Schuessler said, Commissioner Schuessler, the town has grown considerably, as evidenced by finally widening LaGrange Road. I mean, we all had problems with driving on LaGrange Road between Thanksgiving and Christmas. It was a parking lot. We couldn't get through there. And so now that problem's been solved. The reason we had that problem is because of the village growth. And because of village growth, as, who was it, Mr. Hoda said, potentially we're going to top off at 80,000 people? Or, no, that was Mr. Schuessler. Because of the kind of growth that Orland Park has been experiencing, had to widen LaGrange Road, had to widen it. Orland Parkway was built that way to accommodate the traffic going, the potential traffic going through there, because it certainly doesn't have the kind of traffic it was built for right now. But as the rest of it develops, it's going to require that size of a roadway, which is in place now. So to speculate on when and how and what's going to happen and how much traffic is a very difficult thing, and that's really not our charge here. Our charge is really to look into the future and say, well, if that area develops the way the regional mixed-use district hopes it develops, then you're going to need that. You're going to need that 104th Avenue going through. And with regards to that lift station there, it's going to be the village who has to pay to relocate that lift station, because you're going to need larger sizing for the new development coming in. So, you know, from a perspective of what are we going to do for the future to alleviate traffic, it's a logical conclusion. And as far as the comments with fire engines and this and that, well, as Commissioner Roberts said, it's been reviewed by the fire department. The fire department says that the plan as it exists is okay, that they can handle it. Where they cut in the road on, what's the name of that road? It's Emily, where they cut in the road on Emily. I looked out there today. The reason they picked that spot was because once the cars come north to 183rd Street, there's about an 8-foot berm there. You can't see the buildings north of that 183rd Street. So there's going to be no problems with that. And with regards to traffic going east and west, well, if it becomes a problem, then the village will signalize it. And that stops the problem. And they can, if there's people who, I don't know if there's people who park their cars there, but that could be solved as well with no parking signs up there, if that has to happen. So, unfortunately, I sympathize with what's these comments were with regards to the traffic and the speed limits and all that. But we have to deal with what's existing now. You got an existing speed limit of 20 miles an hour there. Nobody really follows it at 20 miles an hour. We know that. And we also know that the biggest offenders are the people who live there. Because who else is going to drive down that street right now? The people who live there. It's not a major thoroughfare. So I think it makes sense to plan for an easement for a future extension to alleviate traffic, not to create traffic. And I think on that basis, I would go forward with that. And I'm sorry to state it in such terms, but it's reality, and we have to look at the reality of what's going to happen. Will we be here? Will it happen in 20 years? I don't know. Will it happen in 5? I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it. Not in this economy. You're not going to get people to come over there and spend how many millions of dollars to build an office living campus, where there's offices and people living there and so on and so forth. Nobody's going to come along in the next 5 years to do anything like that. I question if it's going to happen in the next 10 years. How strong is the economy? Who knows? We can't speculate on that. Those are my comments, and I personally, I'm in favor for that 30-foot easement. And that's where we stand. So at this time, I think it's time for a motion. So, Chair,
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Robin.
I move to accept as findings of fact of this Plan Commission, the findings of fact set forth in the staff report dated March the 13th, 2018. And I move to recommend to the Village Board of Trustees to approve the preliminary site plan shown on overall site plan prepared by Kimberly Horn and Associates, dated September the 29th, 2017, last revised February the 13th, 2018. Sheet X-1, subject to the following conditions. I move to strike Condition 1 in lieu of Condition 1A, and I'll read it. That the petitioner work with staff to revisit what the future impact would be with a 30-foot wide requirement easement for the future widening of 104th Avenue on safety, community issues, and the total impact on the project as a whole to an agreed conclusion. Number 2, to extend the existing grass median to the left turn lane from Orland Parkway to Emile Lane, limiting left turns to emergency vehicles only. Number 3, provide a grasscrete or similar material in place of the proposed asphalt emergency access drive aisle between Orland Parkway and the proposed building expansion. Number 4, provide all additional signage necessary to aid visitors with wayfinding. Number 5, submit a sign permit for all proposed signage. Meet all final engineering requirements. Last but not least, number 7, submit a plat of subdivision to the village for review, approval, and recording.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, and I move an amendment. I move that the condition be added to provide a 30-foot wide easement along the extent of the east property line for the possible future extension of 104th Avenue between 183rd Street and Orland Parkway.
So your second requires number 1 as well as 1A?
Well, I seconded the motion, but then I made an amendment, and if somebody seconds that amendment, then we vote on the amendment, then we vote on the main motion.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a second on the amendment.
He's asking Commissioner Albin to amend his motion.
No.
No?
No, I made an amendment
Okay.
to add back condition number 1. So we'll vote on that amendment, and the amendment will get approved or disapproved. Then we will vote on the main motion. If the amendment-
Motioner agrees to the addition of condition number 1 back into the, as long as condition 1A stays, motioner agrees.
Then we don't have to vote on the amendment. So then what we're voting on is a motion as presented in our written material, plus the information that Mr. Robin,
Plus his 1A.
plus his 1A. Yeah.
I second that.
Would you read your 1A amendment again, please?
Yes, sir. That the petitioner work with staff to revisit what the future impact would be with a 30-foot wide requirement easement for the future widening of 104th Avenue on safety, community issues, and the impact on the project as a whole to an agreed conclusion.
All right, we've got an amended motion which includes 1 and 1A.
Motioner agrees.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 That takes us 1 through 7, Mr. Chairman.
1A through 7,
Yes,
yes.
sir.
Continue.
And I move to recommend to the Village Board of Trustees to approve the elevation drawings titled Smith Crossing Rehab, Sheets E1, E2, E3, and G230, prepared by AG Architecture, dated December the 20th, 2017, subject to the following conditions. 1, screen all mechanical equipment either at grade or at rooftop with landscaping or parapets respectively. Number 2, meet all building code requirements.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Please continue.
I move to recommend to the Village Board of Trustees to approve the preliminary landscape plan titled Preliminary Landscape Plan prepared by Kimley Horn and Associates dated September the 29th, 2017. Last revised November the 24th, 2017. Sheets L2-2.1 and L2.1, subject to the following conditions. Submit a final landscape plan and all required supporting documentation in coordination with final engineering submittal.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Continue.
I move to recommend to the Village Board of Trustees to approve a special use permit amendment for Smith Crossing, subject to the same conditions as outlined in the preliminary site plan motion. Modifications to the special use permit include, number 1, a reduction of the setback between the detention basements and development from 25 feet to approximately 20, and number 2, the location of a parking lot and trash enclosure with the setback area between the building facade and the street.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody, for coming and sharing your opinions. And we will continue. We move to, is there any other business by staff? Is there any other business by our commissioners? No. Seeing no further business, we stand adjourned at 9:04.